Recognizing the importance of technological innovation and digital transformation, as well as the magnitude of their impact on the economy, the Central Bank of Hungary and its subsidiaries, the Gyro ZRT and the Budapest Institute of Banking and the Budapest Stock Exchange, decided to increase their presence in the international FinTech ecosystem and accelerate economic thinking on a digital and sustainable future. Our first speaker today is Mr. Lajos Bartha, Executive Director for Financial Infrastructures and Banking Operations at the Central Bank of Hungary. He was one of the speakers of yesterday's panel discussion on payment infrastructures. Please welcome Mr. Bartha and his insights on the instant payment system as a new form in Hungary.
Thank you, Peter. Giving me 10 minutes for a presentation about the essence of the Hungarian instant payment scheme is a challenge like we have given to the Hungarian banking sector a few years ago to make payments in maximum 5 seconds. But I tried, since the Hungarian banking sector was successful, I do hope I will be successful as well. So let's look at the first picture. What are the basic operational rules of the Hungarian model? You see here blocks in blue and red. What are in blue? These are quite common parameters for instant payments around the world, like main rules in rule books or instant clearing and settlement on individual transaction basis, or message standards are based on, in Europe at least, on the SEPA instant credit scheme. But we have some specialties in Hungary, like for the time being, I haven't heard yet that in any other countries it is mandatory. Mandatory means that all Hungarian payment service providers, which were at the time of the project 35 different market players, had to be ready by the same time with the project, and they had to go live on the same day. And all kind of individual credit transfers below 10 million forint must go to the instant payment scheme. So this is the rule which we have included in a central bank decree and which we have just given to the banking sector. The other Hungarian unique idea is in the liquidity management of the system. In the liquidity management, normally the instant schemes are based on the pre-funding, so participants have to pre-fund their liquidity needs, and if they miscalculate the liquidity for a weekend or for a longer period, then they can run out of the liquidity and then they can stop. In Hungary, based on the request of the Hungarian banking sector, we have created a credit line, which is an automated credit line, and which works during the outside of the normal operating hours, so at the weekends and during the night. So if a Hungarian participant in the instant payment scheme miscalculates the liquidity need, then automatically it can be granted a credit line by the Hungarian Central Bank, and then the normal smooth operation is granted. The third parameter, which is specially characteristics for the Hungarian system, is the maximum 5 seconds of the execution time. In other countries, we've seen 10 seconds, 15 seconds, or even there is no limitation in the time. In Hungary, we have decided at the very beginning that the instant payment should be used also in the physical payment area. So therefore, we have given the sector that the maximum execution time might be not more than 5 seconds. And the fourth interesting Hungarian idea in the parameters is that in Hungary, the standards are open and interoperability must be ensured by the participants. So if somebody, market player, would like to introduce a QR code in the Hungarian ecosystem, then this QR code must be open for any other players, so we will not see any fragmentation in the service of the payment service providers. I wouldn't say that we haven't faced a lot of challenges during the project. We have seen that in 35 different players, there are different infrastructures in the background. And to make them able to execute transactions in 5 seconds or to operate 7/24, this was not the same work for a small bank or for a large bank. The other issue which we have experienced that the major challenge was basically not the 724, but the no planned downtime. So we have written in the rules that the banks cannot stop the instant payment service. They have to receive always the instant payment transactions. And this was a big challenge for the banking sector. And we have experienced also a very interesting story on the vendor side. It turned out that the vendor side is very concentrated, so therefore we have seen a lack of capacities on the vendor side, so sometimes the banks could not go with the project according to the timeline because the vendors could not make the homework. And at the beginning we also planned that from the first day we will let the bulk corporate payments also into the system. But during the preparation, we had to make a change in our mind, and we had to change the rule, and we didn't allow to come the bulk corporate payments from the first day to the system, which was the 2nd of March 2020, but after 6 months. Today, it's already possible, but it's not mandatory, it's optional. If we look at the milestones and if we look at the major steps in the project, in spite of the complexity of the task that all Hungarian players had to be ready by the same date, we gave quite an ambitious timeline for the banking sector. The central bank decree with the execution times and with the deadline was published in December 2017. The project, the nationwide project, which coordinated the banking sector, was introduced in July 2017. And the go-live date which we have defined was 1st of July 2019. So it was basically 2.5 years preparation time, which was for creating the system, for testing, and for having coordinated tests with the participation of the central infrastructure as well. Just a few months before the planned go-live date, it turned out that not everybody can finish the project in time. Therefore, the central bank decided to postpone the go-live date with 8 months. And in the end, on the 2nd of March 2020, on the same day, all the Hungarian payment service providers could go live, and without any significant disturbance in the system. And from this date, we don't see any significant downtime, we don't see any problem, any incident, neither in the central part of the infrastructure nor in the banking end. If we see a few achievements of the instant payment project in Hungary, I can say that in 7 months, 77 million transactions were executed altogether with the ONAS transactions in Hungary. This means that more than 10 million instant payment transactions per month. And we see that more than 40% of the interbank transactions are already in the instant payment scheme. The rest is mainly those type of payment instructions which are not mandatory, like the corporate bulk payments and the value-dated payments. But we see that the banks started to develop for this, and some of them already started to bring the bulk corporate payments also to the system, which is very interesting and which was very surprising for us a bit, that nearly 30% of the transactions are initiated by the participants, by the end users, outside of the previous normal operating hours. So these are instructed either in the night or at the weekend. So this is very interesting. And I can say very proudly that although we just said that 5 seconds is the maximum time limit for the transactions, but 95% of the transactions are executed in less than 2 seconds. And of course, we have some plans for the future as well. The Hungarian Central Bank and the Gyro provides the central infrastructure, a database for secondary IDs, the processing of the request to pay messages, operational guidelines, and we also created the domestic QR code standard. And in the result of this, the market players can develop different new payment solutions on the basic infrastructure. And we have a request, or we have a prediction for the next 10 years. We expect that the electronic payments in Hungary will grow dramatically in the next few years. One side of this increase will come from the bank card transaction, and the other side will come from the instant payment scheme. And we think that from the current 20% share of the electronic payments in the Hungarian payment ecosystem, by 2030, the share will reach around 45–50%, which is an average of the European countries. And I think that with this new development, which we have just finished this year, we can reach this ambitious goal as well. Thank you for your attention.